The little girl appeared out of nowhere, like a crack in the polished glass of a perfect world, standing barefoot on the cold marble steps of a towering corporate building, her eyes too old for her tiny face, and her hands trembling as if they had learned fear before they ever learned play. In a city that never slowed down for anyone, her silent presence stopped something far bigger than traffic or time, because some wounds don't bleed, yet they demand to be seen. Before this story unfolds further, take a moment to pause. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in the quiet miracles that happen when strangers choose compassion over comfort, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to this channel so stories like this can keep reaching hearts that need them. The woman descending the steps that morning was known across the business world as a force of nature. She was the CEO everyone feared in boardrooms and admired on magazine covers, a self-made empire builder who had clawed her way up from nothing and sworn never to be weak again. Her heels clicked with purpose, her schedule packed with meetings, mergers, and decisions worth millions. She had learned to measure life in numbers and outcomes, not in pauses or emotions. The city saw her as untouchable, wrapped in tailored suits and unshakable confidence, but beneath that armor lived a carefully buried past she never allowed to surface. The girl watched her approach with wide eyes, clutching a small, worn backpack that looked heavier than her own body. She didn't cry, she didn't shout. She simply stood there, waiting, as if she had already learned that the world often ignores loud pain but sometimes notices quiet desperation. When their paths crossed, something unseen collided. The CEO slowed, irritated at first, then confused by the way the child looked at her, not with admiration or fear, but with hope so raw it almost hurt to witness. People around them kept moving. Assistants glanced at watches. Security shifted impatiently. This city was not built for moments like this. Yet the girl stayed rooted, her gaze locked, her small shoulders rising and falling with shallow breaths. The words she finally pushed out were simple and devastating, explaining that she had no mother, that she had nowhere to go, and that all she wanted was to spend one day pretending what it felt like to have one. She did not ask for money. She did not ask for food. She asked for time, the one thing everyone claimed they never had enough of. The CEO felt something crack inside her chest, an unfamiliar sensation she immediately tried to suppress. Her first instinct was to delegate the problem, to hand it off to social services, to security, to anyone whose job description included dealing with human fragility. But as she looked down, she saw dirt under the girl's nails, bruises fading on thin arms, and eyes that carried the weight of abandonment. Those eyes reminded her of someone she had once been, a child who had learned too early that survival required silence and strength. Against every instinct she had trained into herself, the CEO dismissed her entourage for the morning. The decision shocked everyone, including herself. She told herself it would be just an hour, maybe two, a small act of charity before returning to the real world. But deep down, she knew this was something else. This was a door she had kept locked for decades, and the girl had found the key without even trying. They began with something simple, something the girl had clearly imagined many times but never experienced. A warm breakfast in a quiet cafe far from glass towers and deadlines. The CEO noticed how the child savored every bite, not rushing, as if afraid the moment would disappear if she moved too fast. She noticed how the girl watched other families, absorbing laughter and gentle touches like lessons she was desperate to learn by heart. The CEO, unused to slowing down, felt time stretch in an unfamiliar way, each second heavier, more meaningful. As the day unfolded, the city revealed itself differently. They walked through a park where sunlight filtered through trees, casting soft shadows on the ground. The girl ran freely, her laughter breaking through the layers of exhaustion she carried, and the CEO found herself smiling without calculation, without purpose. She listened as the child spoke about shelters, about nights spent pretending not to be scared, about dreams that felt too big to say out loud. Each word peeled back another layer of the CEO's carefully constructed distance from pain. Memories she had buried surfaced uninvited. She remembered her own childhood marked by loss, a mother who had worked herself into illness, a home where love was present but always overshadowed by survival. She remembered promising herself she would never need anyone, that she would build a life so strong nothing could break it. Somewhere along the way, she had succeeded, but at the cost of forgetting how to feel. They visited a small bookstore where the girl traced her fingers along colorful spines, whispering stories she wanted to read someday. The CEO bought her a book without hesitation, something she rarely did without weighing value or return. Watching the girl clutch it to her chest like treasure stirred something warm and dangerous inside her, a longing she didn't know she still had. It frightened her more than any hostile takeover ever could. As afternoon faded into evening, the girl grew quieter, her energy draining, the reality of time pressing in. She asked nothing more, but her eyes began to cloud with the understanding that borrowed happiness always comes with an expiration date. The CEO felt panic rise. She had not planned for this part. She had not planned for attachment. She had not planned for the moment when giving the girl back to the system would feel like tearing open a wound she had just allowed to heal. They sat on a bench overlooking the city as lights flickered on one by one, each glowing window a reminder of lives lived behind closed doors. The girl leaned closer, her small body radiating trust, and the CEO felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, heavier than any corporate burden she had ever carried. She realized that success had insulated her from pain but also from purpose. And here, in the quiet presence of a child who had nothing, she felt more alive than she had in years. When the time came to part, the air grew thick with unspoken grief. The girl thanked her with a sincerity that cut deeper than any accusation ever could. She did not beg to stay. She did not cry. She simply accepted that this day, like all good things in her life, was temporary. That acceptance shattered something inside the CEO. She understood then that kindness, once tasted, changes both the giver and the receiver forever. That night, alone in her penthouse, the CEO could not sleep. The silence roared. The city below felt colder, emptier. She stared at the ceiling, replaying the day, the laughter, the small hand trusting her completely. She realized that she had spent her life building walls so high nothing could get in, but also nothing could get out. And for the first time, she questioned whether her definition of success had been missing something essential. The following weeks were a blur of meetings and obligations, but something had shifted. She started asking questions she never had before. She reviewed policies about corporate social responsibility with genuine interest. She visited shelters quietly, without press or cameras. And she looked for the girl, driven by a need she could no longer ignore. When she finally found her, thinner but still hopeful, the relief that flooded her was overwhelming. What happened next was not a fairy tale, not an instant transformation. It was paperwork, evaluations, long conversations, and nights filled with doubt. It was the CEO confronting her fears of vulnerability, of failing someone who had already been failed too many times. It was the girl learning to trust consistency, learning that some people don't disappear after one good day. Slowly, carefully, a new kind of life took shape, one built not on contracts or profits, but on presence and patience. The world never saw the private moments that mattered most. The late-night nightmares soothed by gentle reassurance, the mornings filled with clumsy breakfasts and shared silence. The CEO learned to listen more than she spoke. The girl learned that love did not always come with conditions. Together, they stitched something broken into something strong, not perfect, but real. Near the end of this story, if you felt your heart tighten or your eyes sting, if this journey has reminded you that humanity still has room for compassion, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive, stories that remind us who we can be when we choose care over convenience. And before the final moments fade, I ask you one special thing. Please comment the word kindness below if this story moved you, if it made you believe even a little more in the power of showing up for someone who feels invisible. Years later, the CEO would stand on a stage accepting awards for leadership and philanthropy, but none of them would matter as much as the quiet evenings spent helping with homework, the laughter echoing through a home once empty. The girl would grow, still carrying scars, but also carrying proof that one day, one choice, one act of courage from a stranger can change the direction of a life forever. And the woman who once believed strength meant standing alone would finally understand that the bravest thing she ever did was stop, look down, and say yes to a child who only asked for a day.